Welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, the only show that provides you with the best insight and information to everything Franklin County sports. And now here's your host, Bobby C.
Hello and welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. Want to welcome you here today. Another fantastic week ahead of us. I can't believe it, folks. The winter sports season is officially over for Franklin County. Yes, it is. It's completely over. All of our sports teams are done for the winter season. We're going to do our recap of the winter season. We're going to talk about what happened in playoffs, how everybody ended up faring. We're going to go through all of that today here on the show. Want to thank Philippe Simone, John Meisner, our producers. Also want to thank Chris Collins at the FCAT over in South Deerfield. We also are now joined by MCTV. Thank you, Deidre, for taking us up on that. We wanted to be able to get to as many places as possible. We're now on MCTV, the FCAT, and GCTV. We are on all three of the stations here in the area now, and that is fantastic. Want to thank the Four Leaf Clover Restaurant. Also, our friends at Denny's Pantry, Berniston Road in Greenfield. Lisa Albert of Albert Hearing Services, 33 Riddell Street in Greenfield, and by Sean Hubert of Hubies on Avenue A in Turners Falls. Before we get into our playoff run, I want to just sort of run down what ended up happening over the winter. We got a full-blown deal of what ended up going on here on the show today. Let's get started. Well, it really got started for the hockey team this year. They all went off to a wonderful start. It was a sad ending at the end when they ended up getting beat by Belchertown High School. Got beat pretty handedly, too. If it wasn't for a couple of extra penalty opportunities that the Wave had a chance for power plays, it could have been a very devastating loss for them, but it still was a loss anyway. They end up getting beat in the semifinals of the 3A tournament. Final was their final record definitely showed why they got the great seed they got, but their season did end on a sour note. I will say that the championship for Division 3A was not won by Belchertown. It was won by East Hampton. So East Hampton ended up getting their second consecutive championship, and it came to the hands of Greenfield High School. Last year, they ended up winning against Greenfield in a great game that was 4-3. And then, of course, they ended up beating Belchertown, no problem, 5-2 in the final. Also, we want you to know that there were three really dominant players. Well, really four if you really think about it. You have to add in the goaltender in Riley Drew. He had a great year this year. Jacob Bryant, great year for him. And what about the two guys that got their 100 points this year? That was pretty special for Brian Bauman and also for Doug Hanoski. So congratulations to both of them on their great feat this year. Coach Bouchard, very proud of his team. He said that he had a good year this year. It was just too bad it didn't all gel together during the playoffs. So that is what happened this year in hockey. Well, they had the indoor track. Indoor track and field turned out to be very successful. We had some really good teams, things that really went well for a lot of individuals. You know, it was funny because an individual who had a chance to shine at the New Balance National Championships was Megan Davis of Mohawk. She's in her senior year. It was the first time that she ever ran an indoor 5-mile run, a 5K. She literally ran her first 5K inside ever. Now, you know, with her living up in Plainfield and being up on the boondocks, as we like to call it, she runs up on the hills up there, and she did something totally different. And how about this? At the New Balance Championship, she ended up placing 8th. She placed 8th in the country. Megan Davis is truly an amazing talent, and what she was able to do this past weekend was very special. A big congratulations goes out to her. Also, an excellent job done by everybody who worked hard over the winter during the indoor track that happened down at Smith College in Northampton. You know, another big sport, of course, is basketball. We're going to get into that. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to boys and girls basketball. Also, skiing. It was a great year for some ski teams and some great individuals as well. You know, if you look back and you say, wow, what a great year it was for the Mohawk team. Boys and girls had a great year. The girls winning their division. Also, Mohawk boys doing the same as well. You know, a couple of skiers from Frontier were pretty special. Corianne Delaney for the girls. Ben Martino for the boys. Taylor Loomis, what a year she had. Skier of the year this year. and she was just a big part of why the girls did so well. You know, on the boys' side, you have Bennett Basitis. You also have Danny White. You know, Coach Basitis said that he was very pleased with both of his teams this year and the great season that they had. Congratulations to the ski teams from Mohawk and from Frontier this year. You know, we have a chance to be able to talk about our winter sports teams that we have. And, you know, when we get right into basketball, let's go about the teams who didn't get far in the playoffs, but talk about some of their achievements that they ended up having over the winter. Well, it all gets started up on the hill over there in Buckland with Mohawk Trail Regional. Tough year last year, won a couple of games. This year they won a lot more than they won last year. Better focus by these guys. Jackson Hicks and a few of his players really started to step things up. Will Guyette and a couple of these guys just worked really hard to try to help their team become a better basketball program. And they did it under first-year Coach Darren Schmidt. So congratulations, Coach Darren, on what you were able to do to try to improve the program up there on the top of the hill. Turned out to be a very good year for you as far as watching growth. And I think that when you see growth, that is potential. And potential means that things can get better up there on the hill for the basketball program up at Mohawk. And I hope that things do get better for Mohawk boys because they have definitely put in the effort. Well, another team that really struggled this year, and I thought it was going to be a better season for them, was our folks over at the Franklin County Tech School under their first-year coach, Coach Artis. You know, when you have a chance to talk to Tim and you had a chance to see where the beginning of the year went, things were really hot for this Tech team. But they really started to stumble. About two-thirds through the year, they really started to take some hits. And unfortunately, those hits hurt them because they weren't able to get enough wins to be able to make the playoffs this year. Some of the guys they had on that team I really thought were going to be able to help take them over the top, but that isn't what happened this year. And unfortunately, that Franklin County Tech team did not make the playoffs. And hopefully, things will get better. Well, I can also tell you that there was a couple of big surprises. And you know what one of the biggest surprises was to me? Was the team from Turner's Falls. You know, last year they stumbled. They didn't make tournament. They were in a really tough spot this year. How about this? When you end up being in a position where you're at 6-8, and you know that you need to win 4 out of your last 6 games to have the opportunity to make tournament, not only do you win those 4, but you win 5. And you end up going 5 of your last 6. And by doing that, you ended up going into the tournament with an 11-9 record. Well, that's because of the hard work that these guys really put in over there at TF. And I just want to say congratulations goes out to the effort that those guys put in. Tyler Lavin had a great year this year. Too bad the injuries really cost that team from winning a lot more, because I think earlier in the year, if they had everybody that they had on their team, the full potential and the full team that they needed to have, that they could have maybe even won 13 or 14 games and could have even had a better seed. But unfortunately, they had to travel out to Lee High School on the first round, and they did get beat in the tournament. But Tyler Lavin, you know, you look back, Chase Novak, you look at Ryan Campbell, you look at Anthony Peterson. There's just a bunch of guys who really started to step things up for that team to really give them that opportunity to be able to get over the 10-win threshold. And they did that with an 11-9 record after really being in a tough spot at 6-8 at one time. So congratulations to the TF boys basketball team. Well, another team that has really surprised a lot of people this year, especially after that senior class last year, that really did well and went to the state semifinals. We're talking about Pioneer Valley Regional, losing almost all their starters except for one guy, and that is Garrett Cody. All the other starters ended up being gone. So that turned out to be something pretty special for this team. You know, to be able to have one guy be able to come back as a starter and get these other kids involved and make them better. Troy Emond, you know, look at what Troy's been able to do this year. You know, Ryan Underwood, the great defense that he plays. Zach Fox, great guy down low. You know, even Joel Emberley put in a lot of great minutes. So this team really had a lot of guys who stepped it up. You know, the younger guys, too. What about Jared Hubbard and Ryan Potter, a couple of other kids who really stepped it up this year to really give Pioneer that team that they really weren't expected to have the year they had, and they did it right, man. I am so proud of what Pioneer did this year. Covered their games, was able to really follow them close throughout the season. Of course, we covered them throughout the whole playoffs, and I just want to say that there's a memory in my mind right now of 14.1. What I mean by that is with 14.1 seconds left in that semifinal game down at the Cage this past week, they had a chance to be able to either tie or to beat Drury for the second year in a row. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. And it was really sad because I really thought that this team had that opportunity to be able to win. But I just want to say that Garrett Cody, what a year Garrett has had. You know, his career, he ended up being 4 points short of hitting 1,000. But that didn't matter because you know what I tell people? The impact that that kid had on his team, and for him to be able to do what he did and not make 1,000 points shows that you don't always have to be an offensive threat to be able to be a dangerous player. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to use an example of an NBA player who he's not that great of a shooter, but I'll tell you what, he plays tenacious D. And that's a guy on the Boston Celtics by the name of Mr. Smart. That's right. And let me tell you something. He is a wonderful defender. He doesn't really score too well. Matter of fact, right now he's starting to come around. He's shooting a little bit better now for the green and white. But really, Garrett Cody, when he was younger, he was just more of a defensive player and a ball handler. But if you ever saw the way he dishes off assists and his role that he needed to play on his team, he played it perfectly throughout his career. And, of course, he really started to step up his offense in the last couple of years for his junior and senior year. But to me, he is the best player to come out of Pioneer of all time, who didn't get 1,000 points. And that is a testament to the great job that he did as a leader, as a defensive player, and also how he was able to gain confidence in his offense as his career went on. So a big congratulations to the Pioneer Panthers on a wonderful 2018-2019 season. Well, the Greenfield Green Wave, they ended up getting people wondering. Big time, started off the season 6-2. People said, whoa, look out for the Wave. Well, guess what? They lost 5 in a row. All of a sudden, they're 6-7. Then people were saying, oh my gosh, what's going on with this team? Then they came off, they ended up beating Turner's Falls to go 7-7. Knew they had to win 3 out of their last 6 for them to be able to get into the tournament. They ended up winning 4 of their last 6. They ended up 11-9, and they made the tournament, got a first-round game against a very tough Murdoch team, a team that a lot of us don't really know much about. And the Green Wave really started to step things up. After starting off good, the middle of it was just really mushy. And then it turned out to be much better as they ended their 2018-2019 campaign. And, of course, they did end up the season at a record of 11-10 with that loss to Murdoch. But it turned out to be a game where they took on a couple of guys that were really good, very fast, and a team that Greenfield didn't really see this year on any of the games that they played. So for them to see what they saw from Murdoch was something totally different. A little bit of a tougher game plan for them to be able to play defensive on, and they really struggled. And they ended up getting dominated by Murdoch at home in a first-round playoff game. Angelo Thomas and his team, well, guess what? They made the postseason, something very special. What he said at the beginning of the year was, I don't want to make the playoffs like we did last year, being one of 2 of the top teams in our division. We want to get there by earning at least 10 wins and getting there the way we're supposed to get there. Well, guess what? They did that by being 11-9 during the regular season. So they, like Turner's, were able to have a nice finish to be able to get in to tournament play. There's some seniors that worked really hard this year. Going to be tough. They're going to lose a couple of guys who did really good work. Hunter Campbell, great defensive player. You had Owen Phelps. Owen did some point work throughout the year, did a nice job too. They had Nate Hazelton. Nate Hazelton's one of those kids who more like a bull. He likes to play very physical. He's a very physical player, and a little bit different, more of a defensive player for him than he is on the offensive end. But boy, they got a lot of good talent that's coming back for this team. They got Jake Sack. They got Ryan Cody. They got Mason Meadows, the big guy in the middle, who ended up having a fantastic, and I mean he had a fantastic end of the year, turning out that he ended up having a career-high 28 points in his final game against Murdoch as well, so it turned out to be a nice end to the 2000 season for him. Well, you know, when you're 6'7", there's a lot of things that are expected from you, especially here in Franklin County. Because when you're a 6'7" kid around Franklin County, man, timber! Yeah, that's what they say. Get away from the trees, all right? Well, you know what? He had to step up his game this year, and he had a lot to learn, and he had a great teacher because Angelo Thomas, being 6'9" as his head coach, was able to work with him throughout the year, and Mason didn't disappoint, that's for sure. He really did do a nice job, and I think that he's going to be a very big asset to this team next season. Well, another team that wasn't a big surprise to anybody. They expected that things were going to go good for this team. And they did. Frontier Regional Boys Basketball. You know, you look back and you say, well, how did Frontier end up doing? They did really well. They started off really hot, went into a couple of skids. And I'll tell you, the skid was when they ended up losing to Greenfield and to Smith Academy, both, two teams in their division near the end of the season. What I mean by that is that it ended up being a driver's seat opportunity for them to win the league, no problem. But because they lost to Smith Academy and they lost to Greenfield, Greenfield ended up being co-champions of the division with that team. So Frontier, who definitely everyone said is going to win this division, no problem, it all changed the last 2 weeks of the season, and they ended up having to be co-champions of the league this year with Greenfield. But Greenfield ended up going on a really nice hot streak right near the end of the year, which got them into that position. You know, the two Carey brothers, huge threat. And I'll tell you right now, they are the true deal. Those two guys really held their team together. They were the guys that did so much. Owen Morris started off really hot at the beginning of the year, but really started to cool off near the end of the year. It was sort of a surprising thing for a lot of us media people because we were thinking that because of that inside-outside game, that it was going to be very tough for anybody to be able to stop Frontier because their outside shooting was so well with Morris, but he really went cold near the end of the year, and that really cost them a lot of offensive opportunities for them to be able to get more scoring. You know, Alex Sharp, you know, he wasn't exactly as sharp as we were hoping on shooting as well, pardon the pun, but he was definitely a factor of what he does with the ball, and he's a very good ball handler. And Kalen Evans, he really started to pour it on near the end of the year. He did well with that team too. And then, of course, you look at the two big brothers in the middle, and you can't go wrong. But they could have had three trees on that team, but Colin Boudreau got hurt about probably 2/3 through the end of the year. He ended up dunking a ball, and when he dunked the ball, he broke his wrist, literally. And when he shattered his wrist, he was out for the rest of the season. So they had a beginning of the season when they were dominating and beating everybody. They had three guys down low with the two Carey brothers and Boudreau. Now think about this. If you were coaching a team with three guys that big in Franklin County playing against our local teams, how would you handle coaching three guys on the floor with 2 point guards? Can I tell you what I'd do? I'd make every one of those guys down low set a pick for another guy, and all they would have to do is take 2 steps or even just take the ball inside. By setting that pick, you leave them wide open right underneath the hoop. They don't even have to dribble the ball. Just pop it in for easy baskets. Finally, what's going to happen is everybody from the other team is going to have to cave in on all three of those guys, which leaves your outside game wide open. Or if you notice that there's a problem with the outside shooting, you bring one of the guys up to the point, you set him up as a point guy, then you put the other 2 guys down on the wing, and then you have your 2 guys up top, and then you start working plays where you can be able to work for the open look. There's so many things that you can do when you have 3 guys that big. Man, if I was coaching that team, dominant! Just telling you, I got this thing totally under control. And congratulations to Frontier. They had a great year this year, but they took on a team that was one of the nastiest teams in this area in Narragansett. They ended up losing a very tough one to them down at the Cage this past week. Ben Barshevsky, wonderful job coaching these guys this year. You know, Ben, I got to say one thing to you, buddy, and I know you're tuning in because I told you to get on here and check us out on what we're going to do for your team. Ben, you did an awesome job, man. You worked this team the best way that you had to. And let me tell you, it could have been different if you had Colin in there. But when you did have Colin, you proved how well your team was and how good you were by what you guys were able to achieve. So, Ben, you did an awesome job this year. I'm very proud of you as a coach. Very proud of the group of guys you got, too. What a great group of kids down at Frontier this year. And congratulations on the great year you had. Too bad because you guys could have really used Colin in that playoff game against Narragansett. Very athletic team. And, of course, they had to go up against Sabas, and that team is just unreal, man. And they ended up losing to them eventually in the Western Mass Championship. But still, nice job done by Frontier this year. Congratulations. You know, I look back and I say, okay, who are the big teams that we have here in our area? Well, you know, we really don't, if you want me to be honest with you. We have a lot of teams that can compete with each other. And I think that's what made it fun this basketball season. You know, you look back and you say, wow, Greenfield beat Frontier. And Pioneer, look at the year they had this year after losing all those players. And Coach Scotty Thayer, what an amazing job coaching these kids. Honestly, Scott, this was the best year you've ever coached in your career, as far as I'm concerned, on what you did with this group of kids. Awesome job, Scott Thayer. You should be very proud of your boys. I know that we surely are here on the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. So you really look back and you see what was happening throughout the season and you say, hey, you know, you never know, night in and night out, who's going to come out and who's going to play well, who's not going to play well. Well, it turned out that we ended up with 11 teams total that made playoffs. We had 10 in basketball and, of course, our hockey team. But when all was said and done, we came home with 0 championships this year. But we had one team that did go to a Western Mass Championship. And we're going to talk about this team coming up in just a moment. Want to welcome you to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. Now heard on 3 different TV stations. On the FCAT down in South Deerfield, now on MCTV, Montague Community Television, and also, of course, our home base right here at GCTV in Greenfield. Thank you, Johnny Meisner. Thank you, Philippe Simone, 2 guys who do a great job making sure that we get on each and every week. And I am your host, Bobby C. Yes, we're having a lot of fun, and yes, another winter season has come to an end. As we get into girls basketball, why don't we talk about the teams who struggled a little bit, and then we'll talk about the teams who were able to go far in the tournament. All right, let's start things off. You know, the Franklin County Tech girls, they definitely play in a very weaker division than most of the girls that end up playing in the other divisions around here. But I will say that there was growth as the season went on. Coach Sean Knightley even said that he was proud of what these girls were able to achieve. It was a little bit of a slow start getting out of the gates for this Tech team, but they started to turn the jets on, and they were able to make tournament. Of course, it's always tough for this poor girls Tech team to be able to go up against a lot of these more bigger physical teams than they have at the Tech school, and unfortunately, they did make playoffs, but they ended up getting beat in the first round. You know, I was looking back and talking about some of the girls who really did nice things for them. You know, you look back and you have Duga and Isabel Duga. You also have Jocelyn Crowning-Shield. You also have Jemmy. You know, just kids who really have worked hard and really busted it this year. And I just want to say that Coach Knightley, I agree with you that these girls did have a good season and they did start to come around after a little bit of a shaky start. And congratulations on those ladies over at the Franklin Tech School for making the playoffs once again this season. Well, it was a tough one on the hill up in Shelburne Falls and Buckland area where the Mohawk girls were 1 win away from making the playoffs. They took on McCann Tech in a game that they had to win to be able to get in. It's the old win to get in And unfortunately, they came up short. And Coach Larissa, I'm going to tell you right now, she is just an amazing coach with these kids. She works so hard to do everything she can with them. You know, you look back and you say, wow, you know, Grace Ward, Poplowski, you know, those kids had a really good year. Those girls worked really hard. What about some of the girls who've been around the whole time, like Ashley Reynolds, you know, putting in the time that she put in with the team over her career? You know, these kids worked really hard up there at Mohawk Trail Regional, and unfortunately, they came one game short from making the playoffs. It would have been special because with the coach that they had passing away in good old Chuck Miner and Chuck Strong, that would have been a beautiful thing for the team. They did a beautiful ceremony that they ended up doing on senior night to be able to recognize him and put a special thing up in the gym in his honor. What a wonderful man he was, and everyone loves Chuck, and I love Chuck, and I miss him dearly. Friends with that family, the Miners, for a long, long time. You know, it's funny because when I hear about things that are happening to people and the devastation that has happened with cancer and people that are dying because of overdoses and all kinds of other things that are happening right now, it just really breaks my heart because a lot of these young people are really going young. And I hate to say it, but even a guy who's, you know, late 50s or 60 years old, that's still considered a youngster, okay? It really is. And to be gone that soon is just so sad and so devastating, especially when you have a family that loves you very much. So Chuck Strong, love you, my brother. You really did a lot of special things up there at Mohawk, and you should be very blessed that your daughter has done such an amazing job to carry on, to be able to keep that name up there on the hill at Mohawk Trail Regional High School. You know, another team that really surprised a lot of people this year is the ladies up at the Pioneer Valley Regional. What a nice year they had this year. And, you know, they had a couple of injuries. They had a couple of girls who were out with injuries. You know, one of them was a starter. She was out, and she wasn't able to play. And it was a great defensive player for that team. And Lily Thigh, because Lily Thigh really did an amazing job on the defensive end for that team, but she ended up having an injury and was out for most of the year. But you know what? There were other kids who really stepped it up for that Pioneer team. Tell you, Olivia Rowe, what a year, what a career for her up at Pioneer. You know, in her final game against Pope Francis, she had 12 block shots. Think about this. Let's use our head for 1 minute as a basketball person, okay? Every time you go up in the court and you get ready to shoot is one possession, right? So if you have 12 blocks, that means that you took away 12 possessions from another team because every one of those blocks that she ended up blocking ended up giving the ball back to her team. So think about that. 12 possessions in a game were all a factor because of how talented your center is. That's pretty good basketball, man. And let me tell you, I'm a basketball guy. I watch a lot of basketball. I know a lot of the X's and O's, know how to be able to, you know, mesh things together. I always said I should have been a coach. But my problem is that I wouldn't have a voice because I'd yell too much. So I do this instead. So I just want you to know that she really, truly is a great talent. And for what she has been able to do for her team was absolutely incredible. A wonderful send-off to a wonderful woman, a wonderful family, and truly a great teammate. We love you and miss you, Olivia Rowe. Wonderful basketball player at Pioneer. You know, with her leaving, her and Autumn Flagg, Autumn's a great kid. I love Autumn. She's such a sweetheart, wonderful family as well. You know, she stepped up at a time where they really needed her. You know, when Coach Meg Burrington went to her and said, listen, I need you to play some defense. I need you to step in where Lily can't. I'm going to tell you what, she didn't let the coach down. She did the right thing. And I'm really proud of what Autumn did to be able to come in at a time to take on a role that she wasn't really used to. And to be able to be a senior, that's what you do. You step up. It's called leadership. And between her and Olivia, doing the right thing and doing the way they did it was absolutely awesome this year. Good senior leadership right there by those two girls at Pioneer this year. But what about what they got coming back? Wow. You know what? There's another girl that I'm going to tell you is very exceptional, very talented. And I'm going to tell you what, Steph Scoville is absolutely awesome. She's a great player too. You know, you really think about it, she's one of those girls who's physical. She's not afraid to drive the lane. She's not afraid to take control in any way, shape, or form. She's a gritty player. And those are the kind of players that every coach wants to have. And that is her. Steph Scoville is the gritty player. She can do anything. She can attack the basket. She can get rebounds. She can dribble the ball up and down the court. She can see the floor. She's a really good ball player. And I'm going to tell you what, she probably could have done a little more, but they didn't need her because they had this great player in Paige Lothman, 9th grade freshman, who is a great ball handler. She still has a lot to learn, but I'm going to tell you what, man, what she did this year was amazing. She had an amazing season. She scored a lot of points. She dished off a lot of assists. She was able to do some really special things. You know, I look back and I see that game against Pope Francis in the tournament. They should have won that game. They were up big, and they should have never lost that game. There was things that happened in that game that I could sit and talk to people about off the side of this camera and tell you that there were some X's and O's that should have been taken care of. There were some things that should have been adjusted that weren't adjusted in the second half. That team should have never, ever lost that game against Pope Francis, but they did. But it's okay because it's a learning curve for the girls to be able to see. It's unfortunate for your seniors, though, because they wanted to go on, especially seeing how Olivia and Autumn were getting a lot of playing time. They didn't want to end their season or their career as seniors, of course. But let me tell you what, they have some good things that are going to be happening at Pioneer. Their basketball program is going to be okay. And Meg Burrington, you're lucky. You got some great kids that you can work with. Have some fun with these ladies and just keep doing what you're doing to be able to continue to work them and to make them better players. You know, you look at Turner's Falls. Turner's Falls girls basketball was totally a rebuilding year. That's what it was. It was a rebuilding year for them. You know, you look back and you say, wow, you know, they only won one game this year, but they lost everybody. Last year, they had 7 seniors. 5 of those seniors were starters. Let me say that again. All 5 of the 7 were seniors that started last year. So how much playing time can you get with your new group of girls if you already had all your players already filling spots? You know, you look back and you say, wow, that's really something, isn't it? I said, yeah, well, that's something. How about when you have to get a whole new cast? 7 new players have to replace their seniors. You have to rebuild. It's called the rebuilding year. And you know what? They had a new coach. They had new girls. They had new roles. It was a total start from the bottom. Here it is. Here's the wood. Get it built. That's how they started, from the ground. And they have to be able to build their program again. And that's where Coach Marv, Ed Marvel, is going to have to do that over the next couple of years. And I'll tell you, he does have some really good young talent that's coming up that are very young. He's got 8th graders who can play. He's got 9th graders who can play. He's got a nice group of kids that he had a chance to work with this year to try to make them better. So the future for Turners, I think it's going to be okay. But right now, they had to have a rebuilding year, and it was definitely this season. Well, there was a lot that went on down at Frontier this year. Your head coach ends up leaving 3/4 through the year. He had to pick up a new person to be in charge. Couldn't have happened to a better person to be able to do that. And I'm very proud of Coach Sobieski. Betsy did a wonderful job. You know, those kids worked really hard this year. I'm a big fan of the Frontier girls. I love the group of ladies down there. And I think that the talent that they have is going to be really special. They only lost 1 senior. That's it. They bring everyone back. That whole team is all coming back this year. And I'm telling you, they are a team that I was very proud of this year for what they were able to achieve, to make tournament, to be able to go into the tournament and be able to say that they were able to play in it. That is something special. I think that team right there did a lot of really nice things to be able to improve, especially at a time where they were in trouble. They had to win a few big games down the end of the stretch so that they'd be able to make the playoffs, and they did it. And I'm telling you, Coach Sobieski, she's done a wonderful job. I hope that they end up hiring her as the new full-time coach for next season. I will surely make sure that I will give them my vote of confidence because I think that she will do an amazing job with those girls. Matter of fact, her daughter, Amelia, had an amazing season this year, wrapped around a few of other girls who worked really hard too. You know, Olivia Dean and Marie Demon, and just this team's got a lot going for them. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the growth of this Frontier team. And I already saw it this year, and it's only going to get better because these girls have another year of experience under their belt. Well, if we take a peek and we talk about another team that just did absolutely amazing things, who is it, folks? Talk to me, baby. Oh, Greenfield girls basketball. Where do I start? Let me sit back. All right. Well, this team's incredible. This team did incredible things throughout the year. They played 4 Division I teams that they played to be able to have a better schedule after they had their regular season schedule. They went out. They played in a big tournament up at Hoosick. They beat South Hadley earlier in the year, part of their Christmas tournament they had in December. And then, of course, in the first round at the semifinals of Western Mass, they play the number 1 seeded team. They play South Hadley. Greenfield goes in as a 4 seed in Division III, and they win 55-53. What did that do? It brought Greenfield basketball to the first, that's right, I got to say this because it's amazing to me, their first trip to a Western Mass final in girls basketball in 29 years, going back to the year 1990. You know, back in 1990, when the girls team of Greenfield played in a Western Mass final, there was a girl that they played against from Southwick High School by the name of Rebecca Lobo. Rebecca Lobo is a Hall of Famer. She played for UConn. She put UConn on the map. She brought that women's college to an amazing things. She played for Coach Gino, and she had a chance to have her name in the rafters over in Storrs, Connecticut. And also, when you go into the Basketball Hall of Fame, there she is, Rebecca Lobo from Southwick High School. 1990, senior year, 36 points against Greenfield High School, 17 rebounds. She ends up getting a Western Mass championship, goes to the state championship and wins a state title for Southwick High School back in 1990. Went up against cool players like Jessica Provost, which is back then Jessica Grader. It's funny, you hear Provost, oh wow. Jessica's daughter, Raquel, had a chance to play for Greenfield and was a big impact in that game back on Saturday. So how sweet it is, 29 years later after you were a player, that your daughter is now going for a Western Mass championship, and it's been that long since you were there. So it's a mother-daughter thing. How beautiful is that? And guess what? Poor Jessica, she had to cover Rebecca Lobo. You know what? Rebecca Lobo is big. At the time, she was 6'4", and she just dominated everybody. Her and her brother. Her brother was a big guy, too. He was 6'7", so he was a big, tall guy who played for Southwick as well. He was her older brother. But you look back and you say to yourself, man, who would have thought that 29 years later that you'd have a mother and a daughter that both had the chance to be able to play in Western Mass championships. Unfortunately, they both lost because Greenfield did get beat by Hoosick. They lost by 10 on Saturday in the Western Mass championship. They were down 5 for most of the fourth quarter, but the reason why it turned out to be a 10-point game is only because of the fact that you had the fouls. You know, when you're fouling somebody so you can hope to get the ball back. And Huzik was able to make their free throws down the line so that they were able to clinch and be able to win that title. So now this week, Huzik is playing in the state semifinals where it would have been beautiful if it was the Greenfield girls. Sam Smith, 1,000-point scorer, incredible career at GHS. Reagan Hickey, 1,000 points plus for these girls. 1,000 club, piece of cake, great times. These kids have been playing together since they were in 5th and 6th grade. And you know what? They have another girl who can play too, and Katie Hazelton. She is awesome. Between Katie Hazelton, Smith, Hickey, Provost, they also were able to have Olivia Joy, who also was their 5th starter. Then they had a couple of girls who were able to step off the bench when needed. And I'm going to tell you what, I want to send out some kudos to a couple of those ladies here on the show today. Christina Reed, awesome job in the playoffs. Kelsey Richardson, when you got put into the biggest spot of your life, you're a freshman and you have to play against one of the top players in all of Western Massachusetts because Sam Smith got into foul trouble early in the game. You went in and you gave quality minutes. Awesome job, hon. You did great. And what about Bree Rivera? Bree went in for some great defensive opportunities. She was right in the face of the defenders, they're doing her thing and making sure that she did everything right for those Green Wave girls. And I'm going to tell you what, those girls came off the bench and gave quality minutes. I just look back at this whole year for GHS and I say, it's sad. And it's sad because it's over. This team is such a special team. And to see that Reagan Hickey and Sam Smith and Olivia Joy are done just blows me away. I'm just sad that they're leaving because they were a big part of why this team had so much success. Katie Hazelton is back next year. Provost is back next year. Richardson's back next year. Rivera's back next year. Christina Reed is back next year. Coach Hickey is back next year. Watch out, man. Greenfield Hoop lost some players, but guess what? They got some experienced girls who got some great quality playing time because they were so good. You know, by Hickey, Smith, and Hazelton playing so good and scoring so many points, it made those other girls better because he was able to take those girls out after 3 quarters every game just about, giving these other girls a chance to get quality minutes to get better every single game throughout the year. And look he didn't have a problem putting those girls in the big moment on a big stage in front of thousands of people at the cage this past week. So that is a testament of a good coach and a good group of girls who know how to work together. And that, folks, is GHS girls basketball. An incredible year, an incredible last couple of seasons. This group of girls, they've won championship after championship after championship. We're talking softball championship last year. We're talking field hockey championship 2 years in a row. They made it to the Western Mass Championship in girls basketball. They're getting ready for the upcoming softball season with all these girls back again. Unbelievable group of kids. All honor students, all friends, all athletes. That's a fun team to coach, man. That is a fun team to coach. Wow. I just look back at the season and I just say to myself, I just can't believe it's over. You know, you look back and you say, wow, we literally have completed another winter season. You know, we had some great talented people who did some wonderful things throughout the year. You look back at the teams that were on the bubble and were able to do what they needed to do to get the playoffs. We have kids who are able to make milestones all the time. What about swimming? You can't forget about Turners Falls High School swimming. What about the great year that they had? You know, they have some talented swimmers. Olivia Whittier going to states. You know, you look back and you got Jade Tyler, great swimmer. Look what she did. You have Johnson. You know, you look back at these kids and you say, wow, really talented swimmers. What about Cam Bradley? What a year, man. He broke all kinds of records for that Turners Falls swim team for boys swimming this year. I look back and I say to myself, we live in Franklin County, a very small piece of the state, very small. But let me tell you something. A lot of these kids, they play big. It's because of the work, the determination, and the will to want to be better. It takes a lot of work to become really good. You can have talent, you can be an athlete, but can you be a leader and can you conquer certain hurdles? That's how you find out if you're really a true athlete. And you know what? It takes a little of this to become a great athlete. You got to have something up there. Because I'm going to tell you what, if you look at a lot of the folks out there around the world who have great talent, if they don't have any of this, they usually don't make it. And if they make it, it's for a very short amount of time. That's how it rolls, man. You got to have the smarts to be able to help yourself to become a better athlete. And to see these kids that are around here do so well, and I look on the honor roll and I look to see what these athletes are about, it's pretty amazing on how many of them are honor students and still are able to be this good at their sports as well as in the classroom. We like to call them scholar athletes. And that's what I call them. You're a scholar athlete. And we have a lot of them here in Franklin County. So, yes, the winter season is over. So what does that mean? Spring. Spring brings flowers. Spring brings showers. But spring brings baseball, softball, track and field. A lot of fun. That's what spring brings. And you know what? We got some good baseball teams. We have some really good softball programs. Oh, watch out. Turner's Greenfield again this year. Oh, that's a home run, baby, before it even starts. I'm telling you right now, those matchups this year are going to be incredible. Looking forward to seeing Coach Mullins going up against the young Coach Superstar and Coach Lovett. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't worry, though. Other programs are building their programs, too. They're trying to get better and better, and that's what they have to do if they want to compete with those two programs. Greenfield should have a very good baseball team this year. Frontier, telling you right now, Frontier baseball has been very good over the last few seasons. And hey, don't ever give up on that team because Coach Williams does a wonderful job with those kids. Should be interesting on what comes out of the baseball season this year locally too. And of course, we got our track and field teams for boys and girls. These kids have worked really hard over the winter season with the winter indoor track. So they've had all that time to get better. Should be a lot of fun watching them over the season. So as we wind down another week of the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, I just say to myself, wow, another season is truly over. But I look back and I say, what wonderful kids, what wonderful coaches, what wonderful fans, and what hard work was done made it fun to be able to say that this year we had 10 teams in the tournament for basketball. Our wonderful hockey team made it to the semifinals, lost to a very good Belchertown team that they ended up beating during the regular season in one game, and then they tied the second game. You know the old saying, have you ever heard this one before? It's hard to beat a good team 3 times in a row. There you go. That's what happens. Greenfield ended up taking on a good team. But you know what? They couldn't beat them 3 times in a row because Belchertown got the best of them, and they got the best of them at the right time in the playoffs. So as we say goodbye for another week here on the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, I want to let you know that for the next few weeks, we're going to have guests here because there is no sports. They're not going to be starting our sports season until that snow melts outside. So when you start seeing the snow melt, then you come talk to me and we'll talk about when games will be scheduled. Because right now, it's pretty white out there. And we're not ready for those kids to be able to start anything because the winter season just ended this past week. So we will have some interviews with some of our fine talents from the winter. Hopefully we can be able to get some of the girls in here, talk about the upcoming season for girls softball. You know what would be nice is I'd like to do 1 week of Greenfield girls and 1 weekend of week of Turner's girls, get a little perspective from both of them. I want to get 2 guys in here for wrestling. The Burnell brothers and Cody Wood, love to get them in, be able to have a chat with them. You got the upcoming kid. You got 2 kids that have been around a while. I'd like to be able to sit and talk with them about how well the wrestling program did this year. Wrestling was huge for the Franklin County Tech in Frontier this year. They did amazing work. Jackie Frong, the heavyweight guy from Frontier, Edo McMillan. You know, they had guys, Matson. They did an excellent job for their team. And like I said, the Burnell brothers, Brody Wood. These kids all worked hard, man. You know, they brought home some milestones. They're in the rafters in their gym with some of those special things that they were able to do. The 100-win club. What's wrong with that, man? Imagine going to see a match and know that you're up in the rafters with your name on it for the hard work you put in. It's pretty cool, man. That's good stuff. And these kids worked for it. And that's an honor for them to be able to do that every time that they get to enter the gym, to go back and watch as an alumni of that team. So, great winter year, man. Very proud of each and every one of you kids. And I'm looking forward to be able to share some of the interviews as we get ready for the spring season. For Johnny Meisner, for Philippe Simone, I'm Bobby C. Once again, we're now on MCTV, located in Turner's Falls. We're on the FCAT, of course, with Chris Collins. And, of course, we're right here at home base, GCTV in Greenfield. So until we meet again, I want to say thank you for tuning every week to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. And I also want to let you know, it looks like they screwed my camera up a little bit here, but I wanted to show you folks something. I have a Moose Strong little bracelet right here. And this Moose Strong bracelet is in honor of my cousin who had a real tragic thing happen to him in Florida 3 weeks ago. And I just want you to know that this guy's with me every day. He's now a quadriplegic, and I have these special Moose Strong bracelets that we're doing to try to help his family because one night their family literally got taken over, and it was by a gang member in Florida 3 weeks ago. And it was absolutely a tragic, tragic event. So thank you, the Four Leaf Clover. Thank you, Denny's Pantry. Thank you, Lisa Alber. And thank you to Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant in Turner's Falls. Until we meet again, support your local athletes and have a great one, everyone. I'm Bobby C. saying so long.
Thanks for watching the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report on GCTV. Catch a game and be sure to join us next time for more sports and fun.